The Las Vegas Stadium Authority meeting is underway. I was waiting on the President Trump announcement. Hi, everybody. It's 4:18 Eastern Standard Time, and they're into the public comments right now as part of the agenda, so you really haven't missed much of anything. And that's what we've got going on there. Now, as well as, it's interesting here, I'm going to now fire up. Interesting, we had it on live, and it just started buffering. Didn't find a second ago. And tell you about the Las Vegas Stadium Authority. Well, while that's getting its act together, I am going to go back to our stream, so to make sure we have our stream going and together. Hi everybody. Hey Barry, how do you feel? How's everybody doing out there? I haven't got to the watch stream yet to see who's on, and I'm headed there right now. Let's see here. There's a buffering issue with the other one, so I may. That's wild. It didn't happen until a moment ago. That's a buffering issue with them, not here. Hey, how you guys doing? How are you? I hope that buffering issue does not. Yeah, it's buffering with me too. Wonder why that is. Hey, is this buffering for you guys at all? Or because it's going for me. But I'm wondering, is it buffering for you? And hey, how you guys? It's good over there? No buffer? No, good. Okay, not for you. All right, just for me. And I already restarted the doggone thing. I'm gonna have to try something here. Bear with me for one moment. I have to check something. Now, let's see. It's good there. Great. I was trying something because it was buffering. I couldn't get the Stadium Authority to come in. It was coming in, then it started buffering. So now you gotta quit iTunes, and then quit this, quit, and go back there. The only drawback is always seems like there's some kind of adjustment that has to be made, and I may 66 watching, and some sort of buffering issue with the Stadium Authority broadcast. I'm going to try restarting the computer, not this, because I had it up and they were going through the public comments and stopped. So I'm going to restart my computer and see if I can get it back. There was a gentleman that came forward who was in the middle of talking about presenting what would be a boilerplate community benefits and local work agreement that was also used at the Vikings Stadium, among others, and he said he would present it to the board for review and possible action. Then the other gentleman, that was the white gentleman, and then the African American gentleman came up before him, and he was in the middle of talking, then froze. So it froze. Hey, how you doing, Mr. And then Barry, you feel better. That's great. And glad you're with us. Hey, by the way, as far as a heart condition, make sure you drink ice cold water, like I'm the one to talk, and also copious amounts of cranberry juice every day. It really helps flow, heart, everything. It just does. For those of you who just tuned in, the Las Vegas Stadium Authority meeting is on, and yeah, water's the best. And I'm trying to get it back because for some particular reason it started buffering, and so I thought, oh, why now? So both pages were buffering. I thought, why are they buffering? No buffer. Stop the buffering. So I'm now in the process of getting back the broadcasts now, and also quitting any application that may be competing for internet juice or energy, or whatever, for want of the proper term, right? So there's Firefox is back, showing the history. There's the history. Las Vegas Stadium Authority, Clark County live stream. Hold on a second. There's the Clark County live stream. It's funny how sometimes the thing, you ever notice how the thing that you want on the internet, you press it. Okay, now it's back. Now we're back. Hear that?
We were the first cleaning company, unionized cleaning company, because when we started, it was a non-union shop. At that time, we had...
Now, folks, I'm going to play the audio, and I'm going to show the video where necessary to avoid any copyright issues, and then make commentary, okay?
I think there's 33 of you guys sitting.
This is the public comment.
It was in 1998. He made sure that we did not continue on. We were working on Mandalay Bay. That's what this picture is about. We got a letter December 31st, basically saying at the end of the day, December 31st, basically saying at the end of the day, we went back and forth with the union on that. And I talked to them and tried to find out why was I not being recognized. And I got received in this letter December 14th. I do not intend to provide any further details because I believe that it's sufficient under the law. This union has disclaimed interest in representing your employees and has terminated the agreement. This is final. Beware of Tommy White and Local 872.
Oh,
we continued on. Judge Poe ordered that we arbitrate. That was February 25th.
The Local 872 controversy from 2011 continues to this project. I knew it.
Set up a date to arbitrate, and the union had agreed on dates. This letter is dated November 28, 2001. We were going to set up a date to arbitrate, and then there was another letter where that the union wrote and said, no, there's no need to set a date to arbitrate because this company bankrupt. You know the game. We don't have any money. You continue doing legal papers, and legal papers, and so hence we never did arbitrate. Now I have to forgive Tommy White because that's my religion, but I won't forget. During that time, my husband of 25 years died. We got the letter to get off the job December 31st. March 13th, he died. It was basically, I think, a lot to do when you build a company up from scratch and then you see it pulled out from under you. You know, it does a lot to you. We just saw the man today die, the Fox man. Probably a lot of the stress had a lot to do with that. Now, beware, we all wear a mask, but we need to be aware of who Tommy White is and what he's about. We may go in this one way, but I want to make sure that at the end of the day, that these people are still working and that the minority community is represented. I have no interest. I have a company that is non-union. After that experience, I will not do anything that is union related. Thank you for your time. Just be aware of who you're working with. And if you want any copies of this, I have it. But remember, this is what the company looked like. 33. I don't think there's 33 blacks sitting out there. I tried to count, but there may be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Woo!
How you doing? Tony Gellerson, president of the local chapter of the National Association of Minority Contractors. I'm gonna make this brief. I just want to say I'm very happy with. We've reached out to President Badang about the diversity and also the board here. And I'm just here to say I appreciate. Thank you for working with our association and to help to see if we can make sure we'll get diversity on this project.
Thank you, Mr. Gellerson.
Thank you. My name is David McEwen, President of Labor's Local 872. and I'm here on behalf of Brother White and his leadership. Him and I have been together for 20 years, and we had an historic project on the historic west side. This gentleman was just talking about people being underrepresented and facts. There's no facts that they have to that. I have some facts right here. And Brother Evans sat on that F Street Diversity Committee with Labor's Local 872 with the direction from Tommy White and Archie Walden, our apprenticeship coordinator. And I can submit this to you guys with Las Vegas Paving. It shows graphs and charts from every quarter that we fulfilled work with each craft. And I'm going to take, these are prescriptions, so I'm going to read this. Total training hours by race. Black Americans, 2,085 hours. Hispanics, 119. Native American, 207. Asian Americans, 0. The goal on that project by NDOT was 13.9%. The goal that was fulfilled was 49.3%. Minorities as a whole. Because when we look at minorities, we have to look at everybody as a whole. We don't look at one person. We look at all races, male, female, black, white, green, brown, Christian, Catholic. You look at everything as a whole. And I have some graphs here and charts if you guys would like to review them. Mr. Evans knows he has the same stuff. He sat on that committee. So the stuff that these guys spew, the lies, they have no backup to it. Here's documentation right here. I'd like to present that. And then the ma'am that just spoke before me, she's talking about a bunch of papers and stuff. I would like to see, are any of those papers signed by Mr. White, or are they signed by somebody else, or are they signed at all? So if she can produce those into evidence to show that there's been some collusion, when you don't pay your trust fund benefits, stuff like that happens. You know, it's a shame, but you know what? You have not but yourself to blame. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Stacy Lindberg, and I'm the owner of Company.
This
and
is
I
turning
happen to have
ugly,
been one of the projects
folks.
that
This is turning ugly.
and just gave you the information
Fast.
on the F Street. I was one of the minority contractors on that project that worked for Las Vegas Paving. We had an S Street coalition. We met monthly. We participated, and I actively seek constantly to make sure my diversity numbers are filled, because I am a diversity contractor. But I also went to the 872 at the beginning of the project and explained to him and to Mr. White how important it was that I have the diverse group inside my group. I felt like they supported that initiative all the way through it. I met and exceeded. I think that we need to look at diversity, and I've heard this over and over, more as a whole. I'm a woman contractor in Las Vegas. I'm an owner-operator. I'm not a front. I've been in Mr. White's office. I've been on the S Street. I've met a lot of you guys. I'm the girl in charge. I'm also a Native American. My ground is 100% Native American. Underutilized. I actively go to the reservation and get people to come into the 872. I've had several meetings. So there's more than one group that's underutilized. And I think by us reaching out as contractors, that's how we bridge that gap. So I have to tell you that I have had huge success from 872 and Local 12. So I just wanted to give that word that on the other side of it, I've had great success, and I exceeded the expectations on F Street. And I was a contractor.
Thank you very much. Any other member of the public that wants to make a comment? Okay, thanks very much. We'll close agenda item 2, open agenda item 3. I'll make some just brief comments, and we'll move into the conversation about the lease. First, I just want to thank again everyone involved in this process. It's been quite a bit of work over the past more than a year now, but certainly over the last month in order to get to this point. The Raiders, Mr. Bernstein, certainly representatives from the NFL who have been both very responsive and very reasonable and consistent in their communication with all of us. I want to thank Clark County. They have on a multitude of fronts been very helpful with this process. and without them, we certainly wouldn't be here as well. I want to thank Mark Arnold and certainly Jeremy and the folks at Applied Analysis, the folks at Brownstein, and I want to thank the board for your engagement over the past several months. It has made a difference. I know Jeremy has had quite a bit of interaction with all of you, and I appreciate it. I know he does as well. Without that, we wouldn't be here either. I want to make it clear that if the board does approve the lease today, it will be contingent upon all of the other requirements in the law and all of the other agreements that need to be negotiated and concluded being done as well. Those certainly include the UNLV lease and use agreement. It includes the community benefit agreement. It includes all the work that the Raiders need to do with Clark County on the development permitting side that we heard from Ms. Amundson during our last meeting. I could list the entire number of those documents, but I'll stop there. But I did want to make it clear that those agreements are frankly equally important to this one, but this is a core agreement that allows this project to move forward, and we think because of that it deserved the initial priority in this work. I know the Raiders have expressed that certainly all of these are important, but that the UNLV agreement and the community benefits agreement really are now at the top of that priority list, and we will go to work to make sure those things happen in the next several months. From a process standpoint, in order to make sure that the board had the opportunity to thoroughly review the documents, have time to ask questions, express any concerns, we had agreed that we would bring to the last meeting on the 11th a lease agreement that was as close to final as we felt that we could get. There were still a few open items. During the last meeting, board members had questions. I know there was some input with Jeremy and our staff between last board meeting and this board meeting. But by putting so much effort into getting as close to a final agreement as possible on the 11th, I think, and I hope you agree, that it has allowed the time necessary for every member of the board to have the time to look through that agreement, ask the questions that they needed to ask, and provide the input into the what we hope is a nearing or is a final product today. I want to make it clear that if you have concerns today that we cannot resolve in this meeting, we have scheduled a meeting for Monday. That meeting will take place regardless, but this same agenda item is on the meeting for Monday in the event that the board does not feel comfortable moving forward with the lease agreement today. It is why we structured the three-step process where we really set an internal deadline for trying to get as close as we could last week in order to give you a full week to interact with our staff on the document. But if we are not quite at the finish line yet, we do have Monday available to work between now and then. And with that, I'll just turn it over to Mr. Aguero and open agenda item 5.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Jeremy Aguero, thank you for that. Mr. Chairman, I think we might have jumped over agenda item number 3 in the approval of the agenda, so if you wouldn't mind going back to that and making sure that the agenda is approved, that'd be appreciated.
I appreciate that. So agenda item 3 is the approval of the agenda. Does the board have any agenda items that it wishes to either add or remove from the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Comments? We have a motion. A second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you for the reminder. And we'll open agenda item 5.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Jeremy Aguero. Agenda item 5 is to review and potentially approve the stadium operating lease between the Clark County Stadium Authority and the Raiders Stadium Events Company. Approval conditioned upon the completion and approval of all Las Vegas Stadium project documents and completion of the authority's findings as required under Section 29(1) of Senate Bill 1 of the 30th Special Session of the Nevada State Legislature. Mr. Chairman, as you mentioned, there have been a number of conversations that have occurred over the past week. The document that is in front of you is a red line that indicates all of the changes that have occurred during that period. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Arnold to walk through those changes with you. I'll just make a couple of comments at the outset. Number one, the 3 issues that I've continued to bring up with this committee, those being the maximization of the asset, the preservation of the asset, and the treatment of UNLV, I believe are materially unchanged from the last time we had it.
Folks, the documents that Jeremy is talking about are available if you go to the Las Vegas Stadium Authority website and then click on the agenda, the meeting time for the 18th, and then scroll down. The new leases are right there if you didn't get or see my video from last night. Okay, back to it.
What the document says, and it's as clear as possible for the folks that will come after us in an attempt to interpret it. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I certainly echo all of your thanks. I will not even attempt to try and repeat that in turn. I'll turn it over to Mr. Arnold to work through the red line documents before you.
Mr. Arnold.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. By now, you are used to my voice and the drill of droning on through the lease, but it's a good process, so we're all on the same page. As Jeremy said, we had a very collaborative process between last week and this week, both with the NFL, the county, the lenders for the Raiders and the Raiders to get to this draft of lease. I'm going to go over all of the changes we have. I'll pause after the changes and feel free to ask me any questions. And after I'm done, we can ask general questions if you want. I did want one moment of personal privilege that my son's high school baseball team, the Emory Wiener Jaguars, is playing for the Texas Private School Division II State Championship tonight. So I won't be there, but I wish them very luck.
We do as well. Sorry we pulled you away from that.
That's okay. All right, so the first change we have is on page 2. I will probably gloss over some of the typos not to bore everybody to tears, but page 2 is not a typo. Page 2 is the term expiration date. This language was added to make sure that if 30 years from the date that the lease is signed is in the middle of an NFL season, that the Raiders get the ability to play out that season, postseason, and regular season. The deal is a 30-season deal, if you can think about it that way, rather than a 30-year deal. We thought it would be unfair to stop in the middle of a season. Page 3, section 1.4, you will see the parenthetical. We talked about this last meeting where determinations by the authority board to approve or not approve things in this lease are to be made by simple majority. We just
Yeah,
make sure that would only
I go
be
back
at a meeting
and
where a quorum
hold on a
was
second.
present.
I go back and forth for that reason. I'm not going to really take any chances there, I think, for that. And but what I am going to do is, rather than have you watch him, I'm going to call up the documents myself, okay, and look at them. But I'm going to have the volume play, because you'll necessarily need to see him. You just need to hear him. Okay, that's the whole point. So I'm going to go back to that, and because I think in this case, listening is far more important than seeing. I'll switch when necessary. Okay, but I don't want to get a copyright strike. I'm sorry, I just don't.
If you don't decide to renew the lease, we'll need about that amount of time, like it shows us, to find another place to play wherever that will be. Because of that change, the Raiders must exercise their renewal rights within 30 months. So we have some time after they've exercised them to either agree or not to agree to the renewal rights. Section 2.6 on the utility easement reservations, we have made some clarifications right there to make sure that they are non-exclusive easements. You'll remember that this is the provision that allows public utilities to have rights of way through the stadium property, not under the stadium, of course, but in the parking lot and in the landscaped areas.
The Raiders asked for some more accommodations to make sure that it was clear that they could use those areas under which the easements went, and that at their cost they had the right to relocate those facilities should they need to in the future. Again,
Hey, Barry, I'm
this
just writing.
is a
I
30-year
guess
lease.
strike.
We
I'm not
thought it
taking
prudent
some
without
chances
this
here.
provision we wouldn't be able to allow easements over and across the property that we own. This just creates a safe harbor for that. Does anybody have any questions through the first couple articles?
Okay,
Okay,
just encourage the board, if you do have questions, feel free to speak up.
please.
Oh, by the way, I'll interject where I feel a technical interjection is necessary here.
We've made quite a few typographical changes and clarifications in here. The one thing I did want to point out is that the Raiders insurance consultant and our insurance consultant are still looking at this language. We are approving the lease in generally final form, but this is one area where once the insurance consultants get really fully engaged, if some limits have to change or other minor changes, the Raiders and we understand that. But the other
Thanks,
changes in
Barry.
this section are just typographical in nature. We did, let me change that a little bit, we did on page 12
Hold that thought.
to the additional insured provision to address a comment that the county had, and the county was very helpful. The county's finance department and other departments of the county reviewed the lease and came back with a series of comments that we found were helpful and tried to accommodate. We've added the county as an additional insured party, so the insurance that the Stadco has to keep will name both Stadco, the authority, and the county as insureds. Page 13 on Article 6, we've added a provision at the request of the Raiders. This is in the use provision that the authority at Stadco's expense will cooperate with any permits that are needed to put on any particular event that's not a prohibited event. The typical provision that you'd have is that we won't stand in the way to the extent we need to sign a piece of paper in order for them to get a permit. This shows them where we need to go with that.
Okay,
And
folks,
again,
here's
it's
the
at
actual document,
at
right?
Stadco's expense, so not at the expense.
Here's the red line version right here.
Page 14, section 6.5.
Pardon me,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Arnold, before you go a step further, just had a couple of clarifications related to section 6.3, compliance with applicable law, and Mr. Aguero may need to chime in on this as well. My understanding is that this provision requires Stadco to comply with all state and local laws. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then my follow-up would be, there's a clause in this section that says Stadco should not be obligated to comply with any direct amendments to the act that materially adversely affects Stadco's rights or materially increases Stadco's monetary obligations under this agreement. Okay, I'm assuming that a direct amendment would be a change to the original Southern Nevada Tourism Investment Improvements Act itself, and not something else that occurred with the general law, state law, or county ordinance. So I just want to get that clarification on the record.
Yes, no, that is correct. The Raiders asked for, and we negotiated a provision that if the act itself changes that materially adversely disadvantages them, they don't have to comply with that particular provision. It acts as a deterrent, to be honest, for that to happen. But if general state law changes, then they have to comply with general state law just like anybody else does. If the sales tax increases, they have to comply with the sales tax increase.
All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, just one clarification, Mr. Arnold. In 4.3 and 6.2, where it addresses revenues held by Stadco and the rights and revenues, obviously that won't affect the secondary agreement during the UNLV games.
Yeah,
Just to clarify that.
correct. Yes, if you see the language in section 6.2, it says, subject to the terms of this agreement and the other project documents. The other project documents are principally the UNLV joint use agreement and other documents. That UNLV joint use agreement, and to be honest, the team use agreement will have its own provisions of how the revenue is shared, but this provision is as between the authority and Stadco. Stadco controls the revenue, but it is not intended, and it does not, from a legal standpoint, impede any negotiations that UNLV has with Stadco.
And the same in section 4.3.
Hold on. Before I say yes, let me look at it. Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's a
but
good
that
segue to
language
section
needs to be in the
6.5.
document anyway.
You guys
Just
may
saying.
wonder why we've changed.
Name of documents. We've changed throughout here. Instead of calling something the university sublease, we've called it the UNLV Joint Use Agreement to better reflect in terms of definition the position of UNLV vis-a-vis the use of the stadium. That it hasn't changed the substance, just the nomenclature. And that's on page 14. The next comments we have are page 16 in section 7.4. This is a comment from the NFL. You'll remember section 7.4 is the stadium utilization data that are going to be provided publicly to the board. What this provision does is parrots the language in Senate Bill 1 or the act that talks about how that data can be held confidential if it can be proven to the satisfaction of the board that data contains proprietary or confidential information. We do not expect the actual attendance data and the number of events and the type of events to be that kind of data, but in this report, if there's any more deeper dive on that would be considered confidential information of either a promoter putting on the event or something, this gives STADCO the ability to make sure that stays confidential through the four corners of the act. The next change I want to talk about is on page 19. At the top of the page, that is a carryover of a section that allows the authority to access one of either or both of the two capital funds here for the authority to do repairs if STADCO has not done the repairs. So you'll remember we have a capital fund that's funded by the transient occupancy tax, the room tax of $5 million a year as it increases by CPI. You've got another fund that the Raiders or STADCO is going to put in place that starts at $2.5 million a year and increases by CPI. Those are two separate funds. They have slightly different uses, but generally capital uses. The agreement provides that if there is something that is an obligation of STADCO to do on the repairs of the stadium and they don't do it, the authority after notice and cure periods has the ability to go do that and capture the cost of that from the money in either or both of these accounts. The STADCO and the Raiders pointed out that the way it was drafted, it was at our discretion, so we could use either all of their money or all of our money, and that didn't seem fair that we could use all of their money, forcing them to put in more money. So what we did is we agreed on a pro rata basis of withdrawal. I don't expect this to ever happen, as STADCO's got the obligation to keep and maintain the stadium, but if somehow they didn't, we have a way to access money on a pro rata basis between the funds, if you will. Continue on page 19, section 7.7. This again was another comment from the county, and we appreciate their focus on this issue. We had originally had in this lease the ability of the state of STADCO, the Raiders, to direct how the funds in the $5 million fund that is funded with public money, how those monies were invested. It was limited to permitted investments in the definition, but it still had STADCO direct that. The reason that is done in some stadium transactions is they know when they need the money, short-term investments, long-term investments, that kind of thing. It was pointed out to us by the county that may violate Nevada law, and that the Stadium Authority Capital Projects Fund's custodian, long name for county treasurer in this instance, had to direct the investment of those funds. The county treasurer and STADCO agreed that investment will be done by the county treasurer after conferring in advance with STADCO. So to preserve the ability of STADCO to say, hey guys, this is how short-term, long-term. Also having the county treasurer do this, you get the benefit of the bonding that the county treasurer has in case any of those monies go missing. It's protected by a surety bond, which perhaps would not have happened if STADCO were directing the investment of that. So this is a cleanup change, but it's a helpful cleanup change to make sure that public funds are maintained like Nevada law requires.
Pardon me. So I just have a clarification question based on what you just, Ken Evans for the record. My clarification question would be so somewhere in here or some other document, will the custodian be designated as the county treasurer, or is it just implied?
No, it is designated as the county treasurer in this document.
Okay.
Page 21, you will see this change quite a bit at the top of the page.
We have changed the language to say the maximum extent allowable by applicable law. That pertains to confidentiality. Again, it's a legal comment. Is we talk about confidentiality a lot of times. We don't want to use different language about confidentiality in different spots, because then courts will say you said it one way here, you said it another way here, you may have meant something different when all we were careless. So rather than meaning something different, so in an effort again to get the best document possible, we've tried to make all these provisions parallel so they won't be construed differently. You will see also on that page, page 21, in section 7.8, we have filled in the $2.5 million as it increases by CPI. That was discussed at last meeting, but this was a blank in the document last meeting. This is just a fill-in of that document, that number, sorry. Page 22, those are all typographical errors that we're correcting the name of the certificate that has to be provided. Page 23 at the bottom of the follow-on paragraph, that's again a parallel provision to the maximum extent allowable by applicable laws as it pertains to confidentiality. I can pause here because there are a lot of pages before we have any other comments, if there are any questions by anyone. Okay, the next significant change is on page 29 at the top of the page. That is in the provision of section 8.1 that deals with additional work. You'll remember additional work are alterations or casualty repair or condemnation repair or any kind of, construction work at the stadium. When we went back through this and did another scrub again of this and Senate Bill 1, it was pointed out, or we noticed that Senate Bill 1 in section 31.5 requires that that section be parroted in any lease or development agreement as it pertains to construction work, and so that's that language on the top of page 29. Again, we're trying to make sure that when we approve this, even though it's in substantially final form, that it meets all the requirements of Senate Bill 1. Page 30 on contesting mechanics and materialmen's liens. Again, this provision is a follow-on. Of course, the STADCO is responsible for paying all their mechanics and materialmen's and contractors as they do work or operations at the stadium. They have to solve all liens. They have to bond around all liens to our satisfaction. They can't let the facility be taken or liened against. This provision makes it clear that when they provide security to us for those liens, if they're contesting, like they have a dispute with the contractor, that they can either provide us cash security or a letter of credit in a form acceptable to us. Letter of credit will most likely be a site draft. Letter of credit that's basically as good as cash, but this gives them the flexibility instead of tying up their cash. If they can get a letter of credit without it being fully cash collateralized, this gives them flexibility but poses no risk to the authority. Page 31, which is section 8.2D. Again, this was a back and forth with local councils. Brownstein, Hyatt, Farber, and Schreck was very helpful on this provision. These are the specific lien provisions required by Nevada law regarding liens and whether landlords are responsible for construction liens that are placed on work that are done by their tenants. And so this language was to clean up that language and make sure that we were fully compliant with Nevada law so that the proper notices are given so the stadium authority would never be subject to any liens or their property be subject to any liens that arise out of work from that STADCO commissioned. Page 36 is another change in the indemnity provision. Without going into a lot of detail, this provision makes the indemnities parallel. Again, a further effort to clean and refine the document to make sure that it all makes sense. Page 37, you'll see some changes there. That is just putting headings in so they can appear in a document that we can read a lot better. Page 38 and then page 39, those two changes are merely typos. At the top of page 40 is, you'll see it, we're starting a couple of comments that we got from the Raiders lenders. Again, we're trying to have a document that is easy for, or that's conducive to have STADCO and the Raiders borrow money against pledging their leasehold interest in the property. So we had extensive
comments and back and forth with the lawyers for the potential lender to the raters for their contribution. One of those is on the top of page 40 to make it clear. This is a provision dealing with how condemnation awards are allocated and how money is taken out of the condemnation fund, to make it clear that the team's contribution can also come from a lender to the team, which was always our intention. This is just a cleanup comment to that effect. That same comment is on page 44 in section 12.3b. We then go to page 45 in Article 14. First section 14.1, we had a provision in here that Stadco must comply with the terms, its obligations under the project documents. And Stadco and the raters asked us, hey guys, if we have to perform our obligations, shouldn't you have to perform your obligations? And we said, I couldn't come up with a pithy answer why that would not be the case. So we, of course, agreed to that, and it just makes it parallel, and we are, of course, happy to commit to comply with our obligations under other legal documents. Section 14.2 on audit is another comment from the NFL. Again, the NFL is very, very concerned about a few things, one of them being confidentiality. This audit provision, as Senate Bill 1 requires an audit to be delivered to us. We have agreed that the audit would be a summary report, but that the financials and the footnotes would be available to board members to read. So the auditor is going to get all of this information, but the actual financials and the footnotes of the financials will not be presented publicly. And any of you guys who run private companies will understand why that is an important thing. But at the same token, a further provision in section E on the next page, it is, or just further on this page, it is clear that should we have, or the board or any board member have any questions about the auditor's summary report, that you can inspect the auditor's work papers and those backup financials of Stadco. Page 47 on section 14.5, dealing with naming rights. As you will remember, the naming rights, the Stadco and the Raiders had the right to name the stadium subject to certain restrictions and approval rights. The NFL was very concerned about the use of the team's intellectual property, so they wanted us to make it clearer that, images meant logos and images and names and nicknames, and color scheme and all of that. So that's the first change in here. They are very concerned about their brand, the NFL is. We can all understand what branding means, and so they're very concerned about that. So we agreed that this agreement here does not give us any ability to use any of the Raiders' logos or any of their intellectual property without a separate agreement with the Raiders to do so. We can, of course, use the name of the stadium and symbolic representations or pictures of the stadium, just not the Raiders' logo. At the bottom of that page, we have also agreed that we will not use the name of the stadium or the symbolic representation of the stadium, meaning a picture, to promote a prohibited use. That's not our business anyway. We're in the promotion of the city of, or the Las Vegas and Clark County. So that is not our business, and we thought that was easy to agree. This is the first instance. You will remember that Member Hornbuckle mentioned, hey, can the Raiders and Stadco have gaming at the stadium? And my answer was, there's nothing in the document that prohibits that. Well, of course, there was nothing expressly in the document, but as we sit here right now, under current Nevada state law, there could be no gaming in the stadium. Under current NFL rules and regulations, there can't be gaming in the stadium. But just to drive that home, when you get back to Exhibit F, we have prohibited any kind of gaming at the stadium through standard definitions of gaming, gambling, gaming establishment, all of that stuff. And so we can't use the name of the stadium to promote those activities, which is how much the NFL doesn't want to be associated with that. And of course, we don't want any gaming to occur at the stadium, and it can't, both under existing law and under the prohibitions in the lease as it sits here right now, even if existing law has changed. The next changes we have are in page 51, which is section 15.2a, which is our termination right if certain Stadco events of default occur. The top change, we added the words "in any material respect." After talking with the with the Raiders and Stadco, they were concerned that if there was a violation of law that affects life safety, public health, or the environment, and it wasn't material, one toilet in the third bathroom on the left doesn't flush, that they didn't want us to have the right to terminate the lease. Of course, that's not what we were looking for, so we added in any material respect with regard to that. The bottom comment is just to make it clear that the events in Section A are the only events pursuant to which the stadium authority can terminate the lease as a remedy. We of course have the ability to sue for damages. We have of course the ability to sue for an injunction or for specific performance, but we're limited in certain egregious events for a termination right. Page 53, those changes are in an effort to harmonize the not yet drafted non-relocation agreement and this agreement. It ties these two agreements together. Of course, there will be a non-relocation agreement between the authority and the Raiders and Stadco, committing the Raiders to play 30 seasons in the stadium, and if they don't, they will be subject to both injunctive relief, specific performance, and or damages, and this is just a tying provision in this agreement. Page 56 is a minor change at the top. That's in section 16.1. This is in the essentially the surrender provision. What does Stadco have to deliver to us at the end of the day? And it is clear they have to give us the stadium, all improvements, all personal property, plus all replacements of that personal property.
Hey, he skipped over this part,
if you will. But it's Stadco.
Other personal property that they use at the stadium that's not located at the stadium, they don't have to leave that with us, which is typical transaction. We don't expect to get their home office.
My bad. He got it.
Page 58 is another minor comment that adds a stadium event as a permitted transfer. As you might imagine, lawyers draft language broadly, so it wanted to be clear that any agreement with a promoter of an event at the stadium was not a violation of the anti-assignment clause that Stadco is signed up for. So again, a minor comment there. That's the same type of comment on top of page 59 coming from the lender to make sure that when the lender does exercise its remedies, if it ever does, that is not a prohibited transfer. Page 60 is the beginning of the mortgagee protection provisions for the lenders in section 17.2. You'll remember last week I mentioned to you that we had received right before the session comments from the Raiders lenders to these sections, and this is the result. All these changes are the result of our negotiations with those lenders to help the Raiders have their financing. As you'll remember, there's the Raiders are not pledging the land itself. They're not pledging any assets of ours. What they are pledging is their rights under this lease as a security for their loan. Should the Stadco ever default on that loan, then those lenders can foreclose and basically become our tenant. And once they become our tenant, they will have to, subject to the terms of this section, comply with the terms of this lease. I don't suggest that I go through each one of these changes. It's a sort of a technical point on each, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has on this. That's basic. That is page 60 through page 66. Those are all through page 66. Those are lender requested changes. Again, I should assure everybody what we wound up with in this document is consistent with comparable documents for comparable NFL or Major League stadiums. We're not out on a limb. They didn't ask for anything that was unreasonable. We didn't give anything that would just be crazy.
Go ahead, Mr. Hornbuckle. If the Raiders default, would all the existing provisions in the lease carry forward to
Yes.
Stadco or?
Yes, if Stadco defaults and and there's a new Stadco, all of the provisions would stay in place with the new Stadco. That is correct.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Hornbuckle? Okay, thanks.
You will see on page 72 in what's called the Estoppel Certificate a bunch of changes. Again, these are lender-generated changes. An Estoppel Certificate is a certificate that the lenders ask before they make a loan to the landlord on the lease that says, you've delivered us a true and correct copy of the lease. You don't know of any defaults. You don't know that they're not in compliance with their obligations. You haven't granted anybody else the right to use this stadium. And these provisions were just beefed up what we had already had here as the Estoppel Certificate. All of the additions are to our knowledge, so there's no increased liability really under these. But it, again, helps facilitate the loan to the Raiders. We now go into the definitions. And the only significant definition, I think, you will see, or a couple of them, you'll see starting on page A8, the definition of foreclosure. That was a lender-created definition to make sure that however they foreclose, that is permitted to be done. And whether it's by judicial process, by power of sale, by conveyance in lieu of foreclosure, through bankruptcy, lenders still can control. And then you will see at the bottom of that page the definition of game, gaming, gambling. Following on to the next page, gaming authority, gaming establishment. Again, those are all of the provisions necessary to effectuate the contractual prohibition of gaming activities at the stadium. The other definition on page A9 is the definition of independent auditor. Again, we wanted to have a good tight definition of independent auditor because that's the person who's going to give us the audit on an annual basis and the summary report of the financials of Stadco. I am changing pages here. I think that takes us to the very last page, which is Exhibit F. And again, Exhibit F, or second to last page. Exhibit F, we've added in H, as in Harry at the very bottom, the gaming prohibition, which includes a sports wagering and racing prohibition. That is all that I have on my review of the lease. Again, I am happy to answer anybody's questions on what's in here, what's not in here, what you don't remember, that what used to be in here. I will tell everybody that this started out at, 50 or 60 pages, and now we're basically with definitions up to 100 pages. So if we had one more week, maybe we go to 150 pages. I don't know, but I don't want that week either. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does any member of the board have any questions for Mr. Arnold?
I have a,
Mr. Taberti?
I just need a clarification, or, it's my understanding that all maintenance and capital repairs and capital improvements are the responsibility of Stadco under this lease.
That is correct.
Also, I understand that we are reserving, and I don't know if this number is correct, $7.5 million for capital repairs each year. My understanding is that this amount will be adjusted for inflation each year, and that this is more than most stadiums are observing in the rest of the NFL stadiums. My question is, what happens in the event that more capital dollars are needed in this future of this 30-year lease? Additional capital projects out of cash flow, or are the NFL have any kind of funding programs that the team will be able to access for future repairs or renovations?
Right, so you are correct that there's a $5 million that comes from the bed tax or the room tax, and there's $2.5 million that comes from the Raiders each year or Stadco each year. Both of those are escalated by CPI through the term of the lease. Both of those are available for capital repairs. If the room tax money never materializes, the Stadco is still responsible for capital maintenance, capital repairs, and capital improvements, regardless of whether there's any money in either of those funds. They would pay that out of either capital contributions that they make to their entity, or out of cash flow, or out of profits, cash flow. And I understand there are NFL programs for when stadiums are in need some repair. You go back to the NFL and you get some more lending. I'm not an expert on that, But what we have here is typical of other NFL stadiums that are controlled by the team or the tenant, and it's a very generous capital reserve, especially with the CPI increase.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions for Mr. Bedane. Could you come on up, Mark? Just a couple real short, just to clarify and sort of sum this thing up. Let's assume in year one, the first couple of years, there is an operating loss. How is that handled?
For the record, Mark Bedane, and with me is Dan Ventrelli. The operating loss is the responsibility of the Stadco and the team.
Okay, you guys cover it.
That's ours.
Okay. Then in the unlikely event, very unlikely event, that you guys can't honor this lease, I guess the NFL has some equity programs. How should we look at that? How does that work?
Well, the NFL has a cure provision where they can step in and essentially honor the terms of the lease through various mechanisms that they have, including the sale of the franchise.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for Mr. Bedane or Ms. Ventrelli?
If you'll indulge me, Mr. Chairman, before I sit down, I just wanted to thank the board. I know you all have jobs and businesses to run, and this wasn't even a scheduled meeting. So thank you for taking the time. The public should feel pretty reassured and confident that their investment is protected by this group, and we've seen an incredible amount of work the last couple weeks. And also, I wanted to, Tom, you've gotten enough love today. I just wanted to say thanks to the crew back here. We've been coming to meetings for, hold on. We've been coming to meetings for about 17 months, both here and when we were working with the Syndic Committee, and there has been one meeting or one rally or one event where you guys haven't shown up in force. And it's acknowledged, it's recognized, it's appreciated by ourselves, by the Davis family, by the Raiders. And we've designed a spectacular building, and we can't wait to watch you guys build it. So thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, if the board's ready to move forward, I would entertain a motion to do that.
Chairman Hill, I'd like to make the motion to approve the current form of the stadium operating lease between the Clark County Stadium Authority Board and the Raiders Stadium Events Company, with final approval conditioned on the authority making all findings required under Section 29.1 of the Southern Nevada Tourism Improvements Act and the authority's approval of all project documents referenced in the stadium operating lease.
Thank you, Mr. White. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thanks again for... Good. Let's go build a stadium, huh?
Chairman Hill, if I might just say a couple of words to... I just want to thank everybody, you know, not only just the members of Local 872, but the apprentices, the new talent that's coming into Local 872, and all the contractors and everybody that has worked so hard on this. We've seen a lot of hard days out there with no work. We see a lot of bright days coming up with plenty of work, and it's the members of Local 872, and I got to thank them so many times for always being there at every event, whether it was 6 o'clock in the morning, heading up to Carson City with those 18-wheelers and fire trucks, but you guys have always been there, and you guys deserve this. Thank you very much.
Okay, since we have agenda item 4 open, if anybody else on the board has anything they'd like to say, feel free. Okay. We will open up agenda item 6. Is there any member of the public wishing to make a comment?
Stanley Washington, Las Vegas. Now that we've commented on the workforce development side, and we know we still have our share of work to go and do on that side, we're now commenting on the contracting side of things. I want to start out by thanking Mark Davis for picking Mortensen as the general contractor. I've done the research on Mortensen. Doesn't take long, Mr. Chairman, okay? They're coming to us with one of the most diverse construction records I've seen. And it's going to be a joy in working with Mr. David Mortensen and his group to come help us achieve our objectives here, because guess what? 15% is not even in their vocabulary. They start 20, 30, 40% going northward. So when we sit down and talk about inclusion here, they will be an advocate with us and not one we have to go ahead and challenge there. So that is certainly going to be a welcomed improvement. The idea that the SB1 says 15%, that's fine. Don't know what Senator Ford was thinking about there, but believe me, 25% is the order of the day. That's what's going on in LA. When Mr. Marnell does high-speed rail, he's at a 30% clip. So that whole 15% business, I don't know. So we can talk about the 15% since it's already in the law, but the goal being the 25% minimum, because that is what's going on down there. And it's going to be a pleasure to know when I bring that up to Mortensen, they're going to say, oh, Mr. Washington, you haven't said anything at all. We regularly exceed those numbers there, so we're not going to have any fight on that situation there. So I'm going to want to go ahead and make sure that Mortensen is taking the lead as we go ahead and achieve our objectives, and not McCarthy, because their numbers are on the opposite side of things locally. I've had personal dealings with them. If anybody else in this room can say so, step forward. So as we come down, I know they're the local partner, but come time for diversity, it's Mortensen and GC who has responsibility. It's going to be a pleasure for them to reach those numbers as we come on down. Thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Patricia Martinelli Price. As I'm sitting here, I have been watching you on TV to see all these meetings. 17 months is really crazy. I mean, you've got now a contract. The Raiders have a contract now finally, and a lot of the provisions, this and this. I mean, do we really want them here? Of course we do, because for the gaming industry, it is actually another group of clients that come here to our city. And as a native Las Vegan, for me, it's very important. My family's been here. I forgot to say my mother was American Indian, and my father ran the strip. Al Martinelli, check him out, you'll know who he was. And it is an honor to have them here, but I wish that we would have had our good friend Sheldon Adelson be involved in this, because first of all, he's made so much money himself. He's, an owner of major conglomerates throughout the world, and I wish he would have been part of it. But I think as I see the contracts and everything else, it's like it's not a win-win for not too many people. And we need to look at that, because on the gaming side, why couldn't they have gaming? I work very closely with the Native Nations nationally, and why couldn't they have gaming eventually? I mean, why couldn't they? We have the casinos there. A lot of us don't even want to go on the strip anymore. Not that we're cheap or anything, but we're spending money to eat and gamble, and then they want us to pay for parking. That's ridiculous. So, that's one of the things that I look at, and I feel that we need to all come together. I'm sorry what they were talking about Tommy White. I know Gene Collins, and I respect him and love him very well, but I think we all need to work together. Whatever our differences are, we need to work together. I'm a very strong Republican, but I work very closely with the unions, and we all need to work together for the common good of our human family, especially with this project here in Las Vegas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon once again, Stadium Commission. Once again, Archie Walden, Labors 872, Assistant Training Director, Apprentice Coordinator, and Executive Board Member at Labors 872. With everything that's gone on today, we understand the stakes that are on the table right now. You've done your job, the contractors are doing their part, and we stand ready to go out there and put shovels in the ground and get the stadium off the ground here. Looking at the future of Las Vegas, looking at the future of Southern Nevada, this is it right here. This is what everything that is affecting is happening today. We understand there are differences out here. Some of those differences are past. You were talking about 20 years ago, and they're still hanging on to them. I think if we're going to move forward, let's move forward. Let's get everything off the ground. No more time for name calling. It's time to get everybody back to work, and that's just pretty much where I stand. We know what 872 is. We know what the trades are willing to do. We know what the contractors are at. Everything else is just vultures circling around the carcass right now. So let's just get back to work. That's all I'm about to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Gene Collins. First of all, I want to thank all of the work that you all have done. I want to thank everybody who has participated in this. And what we're doing is looking forward to sitting down with everybody and see how we all can be included. Now, we all heard about the diversity and how do we fit, but we are going to see now what diversity looks like, because it's all in the numbers. And we're depending on you all, the Raiders and the NFL. We're going to make sure that this is a community project, because those of us that are here who has worked so hard, so diligent to get us where we are, not only in this room, but Las Vegas as a whole. There are some of us who grew up here who has been working to make sure that this community is for everybody. So now diversity means just that. We're going to diversify, and we're going to make sure, and we're depending on you all, the Raiders and the NFL, to make sure that people who look like me in the historical Black West Side community is included in this diversity. And thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, David McEwen, Labor's Local 872. Not only do I want to thank the board, but I want to thank Tommy White personally. I may be a little bit biased, but he's a pillar of the community. And if it wasn't for him and the direction he gives us and our apprentices and everything else with the Raiders and their staff, we wouldn't be here today even talking about this. But I also want to thank McCarthy. They've put the numbers in. They're the general that's going to be working on this, and they're a good union contractor, and we want to give them a hand too. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, member of the board. My name is Melvin Green, KME Architects, 5588 South Fort Apache Road, Suite 111. I'd like to commend you for your effort and for the Raiders' effort, but I feel like a stepchild here because I hear only on the construction end of it, but we do have the professional services as well. So we just want to make sure that everyone understands the capability of a small business. We are very diverse. We are very working with the architect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon once again. My name is Tim Brooks with Amazon Masonry. As a minority contractor, again, that's been doing this 20 years, I'm very excited about what's taking place today. You know, diversity starts with the commitment from the owner. And like I said before, you know, the strongest ally I see on the board is MGM and what they have done in the past. You know, when they did the stadium, when they said we're going to do 20%, they make it happen. And so, you know, McCartney being a contractor, and some of us have worked with McCartney, you know, I just think it's very important that we have a dialogue with McCartney to, you know, make sure that we get the commitment that we're all seeking out there. I want you guys to know that there's plenty available minority contractors with good capability that can do this work out there, that with the bid limit, to be able to successfully do this. I don't think that using a minority contractor costs you any more money. I think I've proven that over 20 years. And so I just, you know, as I speak for all the different organizations, I don't want to speak for different organizations, but as I see all the different organizations out there, I just think that, you know, we need to sit with each other and come up with a platform and a package to present you guys to
a lot of comments, so I'm going to
that we're out there
switch over and
do that work, you know. And then as for Tommy, you know, he's being a union, and he's only union representative here from all the other different trades. I'd like for us to have him help us, you know, facilitate with the other trades out there, whether it's the carpenter, the refrigeration, to sit down and look at that platform. Because, you know, some of us are out here asking for jobs as contractors, and some of us are out here asking for jobs for individuals. And so the unions already have in place training programs out there. So this is not a wheel that needs to be reinvented. This is just something where we all need to come together and figure out how to make this work, you know. And, you know, I've had my challenges over the years with unions, good and bad, but they've been good. I've been audited. I don't owe them no money. They've never got me for anything. But it's a challenge out there because it's a bigger dollar. You know, it's a bigger dollar when you're paying $15, $20 per head, $600 per head to each individual after you pay their 40 hours, and can you cash flow that? And so there's a lot at stake here when you do go union, and whether you can do it or not, but it can be done. We can be mentored up. Some of us can be mentored. Some of us are ready to be worked, but I think if the forum is open and look at this positively, we can get this done. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Joe Cato, and first I want to say thank you all for working on this and getting this agreement signed today so we can move forward. Now we go to the second phase of this is to work with staff and the board as well to get a community plan together as mentioned in SB1. I commend the Raiders as a former Raider employee for 5 years. The opportunity to work with the organization again is very exciting to me and for others here as a minority business. We want to make a contribution, and I just want to say on the record, thank you for the work that you all have done. It's not easy, and you get a lot of backlash as you go, but we want to say we're here to work with you, make a contribution, and how we can help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, members of the board, my name is Mr. Michael Jenkins. I'm the owner of the Message to Million trademark, which is an art masterpiece that showcases the history of Las Vegas. The union for their support of me as a small business owner and as a minority. These guys was the first guys to give me an opportunity to earn their business. That particular masterpiece is sitting inside of their shop. I look forward to working with Mr. White as well as the union. I have a signed contract agreement to bring the Central American Olympic Games here to Las Vegas, which consists of 36 different games, 31 different countries, 5,700 Olympic athletes. Signed contract to bring the Central American Olympic Games to the new stadium. So I look forward to working with the union. I look forward to working with Mr. Tommy White, and I will continue to support the Las Vegas brand globally. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to provide comment? Okay, I'm sure you'll all be here for our budget hearing on Monday morning. Thanks everybody for being here. Thanks again for everybody who allowed us to get to this point. We're adjourned.
Okay, so for what do you think? I have to say one thing as a planner. It's quite exciting to see them get to this point, even though technically it isn't anything not anticipated. They're to finish the first part of the lease. They've got 11 documents to go, but as a person who's worked in government, who gets together people to do things, that's been my history before I started my own business, it's exciting to see a city do it. The sad part about it is the same thing that has plagued me every time I go to an NFL owners meeting and see another municipality win a right to host a Super Bowl or bid for one. You have to remember, I'm the only person in Oakland history, it looks like I hope that changes, but I'm the only person in Oakland history to have formed a bid to try to bring the Super Bowl to Oakland. And so I know what it's like to do this kind of work, even though at a smaller scale, and it's really gratifying to get to these different milestones and with all these hiccups. So I have to applaud them for the work they've done and the people that have been involved. There are a lot of people involved in Las Vegas, Nevada, and the NFL. There is one thing I heard that really picked my ears up like this, and it's that the NFL has a facility, kind of a credit facility, that will actually help improve stadiums. And my question is, why wasn't this applied to the Raiders stadium over those years when the Raiders claimed that they wanted improvements to the stadium? Why didn't they enact that ability at any time? That's a big issue. And that's an issue that could wind up being a court issue, okay? When I heard Bedane say that, and I'm going to pick that part of what Bedane said off and reproduce it, that's a big issue. It's a big issue. Now I'll take your comments. So yeah. So anyway, I think that this is still, here's how to, okay, well, not right. Yeah, Barry Lee is right. Barry is right. Yeah, I caution you not to get too caught up in the hoopla, okay? Because
again, the right, almost approved. You still have to go to the budget issue. Again, the fact of the matter is that there are 11 more documents to go. There's land that has to be identified for parking. It hasn't been. There's a lot of work to go. But again, I'm a biased builder. I am biased on the side of builders. And I like people who build, not find an excuse not to build, all right? And in my history with Oakland, we found excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse not to build something. And not just stadiums. I'm talking about 1991, 1993, we could have had a $2 million square foot, shopping center, and the city didn't want to contribute a subsidy to it, which would have been almost $300 million, but it would have transformed downtown Oakland through the turn of the century, through the turn of this century, okay? And we didn't do that. So we have a lot of examples of failure to build. And the problem with this is our failure to build is essentially being thrown in our face, okay? That's the big issue to me. The A's could be our savior here. But it's also contingent upon how we as a city work with the A's in building a stadium that everyone will be proud of. I think it should be at Howard Terminal. But there should be, and it's not going to be, but it should be, but it's not going to be, a wake-up call for Oakland. But it's not, because we've been damaged by progressive politics. As a liberal, I say that. Progressives like to tell you what you can't do, and what they can't do, but they don't like to build things. They like to regulate, but not build. Liberals like to build. We'll tax you, but we'll build too. These guys are liberal, okay? Just saying. So anyway, just saying. Now, Barry Lee says, Ricky again wrong. Ricky, here's the thing. Ricky, that's not true. Okay, first of all, Ricky, Oakland did submit a proposal. Many proposals. So, and they're all viable. You see, here's the problem. You don't know what the term viable means. Because if you did, with respect to stadiums, you would be able to say, yeah, Oakland's proposal is viable. What's going on here? But there's a lot that you say, and you're not even Ricky Bobby anyway. So, and you don't even live in Oakland. So my point is, there's a lot that you say that is wrong, and, it's just kind of like, I'm going to say this. I don't think it's right to parrot the same thing again and again and again to people if they don't want to hear you, okay? So try something new. Or if you're going to say Oakland didn't produce a viable proposal, give me demonstration, okay? So, no, it's not, Ricky. That's wrong, all right? So it isn't. You can't go by a vote and say that. That vote was done for other reasons. It wasn't that the proposal wasn't viable. It was. The NFL could have chosen that land. They could have made that decision. Do I think that we should have given them the land? Yes, I've said that. But it doesn't mean that the acreage there and the offer there wasn't, viable. It was. Okay? It was completely that. I have said the mayor did not make the right decision. I have said she didn't give the NFL what they wanted. And even, Ronnie Lott, who I just communicated with recently, all right? So, no, Ricky, you're kind of being a jerk, okay? All right, I say, hold on a second. Okay? And I don't want to write that, but you're kind of being, okay? So I'm just going to say stop being that way. Don't stay absolute about stuff you don't know about. I mean, I'm the person who knows far more about it than you do, and you're telling me as if you think you know more than I do, and you don't. All right? I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow, but I'm going to force it down your throat. You don't know what you're talking about. And it bears discussing, And I'm going to talk to you as if you are who I think you might be. And there are 3 people I believe you are. Now, my point is this, okay? The simple fact that we stuck as a city, led by the mayor and Ronnie Lott, because Ronnie was culpable here too, didn't stick to our mantra being deal flexible, got us into trouble. It doesn't mean that, and Ricky, you're not stating facts, but you are being a bit of a jerk. You're not stating facts. You're stating facts as you think, you're stating ideas that you think are facts, but they're not facts. Because no, you've never asked me, unlike other people here, one bit, you know, what happened when, for example, Mark Davis asked me to submit my proposal to him, which I did do, okay? And Mr. Davis wanted public money. I submitted a proposal that met in part the mayor's request for no public money. But the Raiders needed money, so I carved out $2 billion of revenue for them. And I did that in a very detailed spreadsheet. And if you go to Google and type Oak Coliseum City Reboot, it's all right there, okay? So, Ricky, again, you're being a jerk. You're not aware of my proposal because you haven't read my spreadsheet and everything else. Let me ask you a question. Are you going to keep being a jerk? Because you're going to keep being a jerk, I will personally block you. I don't have time for jerks. Huh? Read what, Ricky? What did you read? Be articulate. Be articulate. You sound like Tariq Hassan. Be articulate. Actually, Tariq Hassan, for those of you who don't know, is a guy who had this, some say cockamamie idea for Boeing to finance through kind of a naming rights, landing fees structure, stadium construction. But he couldn't produce Boeing. And I like Tariq personally, but I'm just being honest with you about how the idea was regarded, okay? He couldn't produce Boeing. He didn't want to produce any documents. Nothing, all right? So, nothing. So, no, actually, it was... But I'll explain this, Ricky. Why was the hotel there? Okay? Because if you say that, you didn't read the spreadsheet, you didn't understand. In other words, you didn't understand anything, okay? Nothing. Actually, Ricky, I had 3. Just saying, I had 3. Again, there's a lot you don't know, all right? There's a lot you don't know. So anyway, my point is that, so you can't just, Corey Brown says, what I don't get is how the NFL says Oakland had no viable solution, yet Vegas deals hitting stumbling blocks at every turn. Nothing is ready. Everything seems like it's being created on the fly. It is. It is being created on the fly. That is the problem. You have people adjusting because Mark Davis forced this issue with Jerry Jones. And so now you have all these people working because those two said, oh, let's get this done, all right? So, hey, Ellis Conway, keyboard warriors. I like that. Keyboard warriors. Yeah, no, I mean, here's the thing, okay? My whole point is that where this is now is about where we expected it to be. But again, there are 11 documents that have to be done. 11, all right? 11. And, yeah, everybody be nice to each other. And again, now as far as my proposal, I would have, if the Raiders had done my proposal, the Raiders would have been able to claim at the completion of the stadium that they're worth $4 billion. They will not be able to make that claim in Las Vegas. You heard me right, $4 billion. The Raiders would be worth about as much as the Dallas Cowboys and be one of the, or if not the richest franchise in sport. I'm very proud of what I did. So Ricky, when you say something like that, it really ticks me off, okay? Because you haven't asked me you asked me a damn thing about my proposal or the numbers or anything, or how I came to those numbers. You haven't asked me a damn thing. And don't sit back there laughing either. It's not funny. Because if I ban you, you don't come back, even as somebody else. I got your IP address. I take this very seriously, okay? So stop it. So anyway, if Oakland simply sold the land for fair market value, today's determination, the Raiders would still be in Oakland. Actually, if the city of Oakland had given the NFL the land for $1, then they would give the NFL as a property taxpayer because the county would have actually set the real assessed value, okay, and then by negotiation, and that would have been the Raiders' rent, and then we could have taken a percentage of the revenue from the developments around it. It'd be 100 acres. Talking about 105 acres. So there's a lot we could have done there that was just thrown out. So anyway, what I'm talking about, Rick, is that the NFL originally wanted a land turnover for $1. They wanted essentially what Fortress got. That's what I'm talking about. So I came up with a way to actually, I took the whole Fortress deal, I turned it sideways, and made it so that the NFL controlled the land, but they worked with Fortress. So we still had Fortress. Now the year before that, I got the Raiders and the City of Oakland Piper Jaffray investment bankers after a cold call. I got Diane Pauley, the managing director who built the St. Louis Stadium, privately financed. We had a 6-person deal team, conference call. They loved my spreadsheet, everything. We were ready to build, okay? So, and I have to say one thing. There's one bias I have toward the president. He's a builder. I like builders. I like people who want to build things because that's what I went to school for. I went to school to be an urban planner. Urban planners don't, spend as much time regulating as they do trying to build. Well, some of us, but we have houses. Look, we build, okay? Or we regulate building. We do both. But my bottom line is I love the built environment. You have to love the built environment to love this sort of thing. So, very least, thanks, Barry. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Oh, okay. So, Egbert Perry, that's a good question. Egbert made a proposal to buy the land that we're talking about for $167.5 million, which is basically the bond defeasance money. And the city didn't accept that, but he being Egbert Perry, made the proposal outside of the knowledge or approval of Ronnie Lott, who had the exclusive negotiating agreement. Now, I still don't know to this day exactly what happened to the pair of them. I talked to the mayor. She doesn't really know either. A number of people don't have an idea. Someone knows. Well, Egbert Perry knows. Okay? Egbert Perry knows. Which gives me an idea. But the bottom line is, that's where that sit. They were together, and then all of a sudden, around July of last year, they weren't. So, Octavio says, still waiting on Skype. I'm also a builder. Gotcha, Octavio. Let's see here. So we are at 5:46. I'm going to stop at 6 o'clock. Ricky Bobby, why didn't they accept it? Could it be they had another deal with biotech industry? They tried to play the middle ground. It wasn't that they had the deal in hand, but there was this promise of a deal. It's hanging out there. But as Councilmember Kalb said to me at the Saturday Raiders fans forum before the NFL annual meeting, the Raiders better make a decision because that land is not going to be for sports in Oakland if they leave, which I thought was a terrible comment to say, but I didn't want to talk him out of saying it because you want to get what's on a person's mind at the time, and you can't do that if you're arguing with them, right? So, particularly if they're not inclined to say it forcefully if you start arguing with them. So, the bottom line is, though, that the biotech organization, there's no guarantee that that organization is going to provide as many jobs in construction as, let alone operation, as the Raiders stadium would, let alone an A's stadium or combination like I originally proposed. let alone development around it. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about, what was originally called Zone Technologies across the freeway. I mean, if we're talking about that kind of office building, that size, forget it. Because most of that land is devoted for parking. It's a flat building. It employs far fewer people than a stadium complex would for events. So if they're talking about something like that, my answer is no. Absolutely not. And, you know, that idea should be shot shot at sunrise, okay? What the overall problem is that we have an electorate that is consistently afraid of doing large deals. And it doesn't matter who you put in the mayor's chair. Since Elihu Harris left, since Jerry Brown left, okay? It doesn't matter if it's Dellums or Quan or Schaff, my god sister, still to this day, even though we're pissed at each other. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter who you put in that chair, even among council members. They're not accustomed to big deals with big numbers. And so what is large to one person at 300 million in Oakland, around the world is a drop in the bucket. When I worked for Elihu Harris, when I was his economic advisor, I routinely cold called people that the current mayor's staff would be afraid to call. And how do I know that? Because I've heard them ask permission from other council members to call certain people at the NFL. I didn't ask for permission to call anybody. I picked up the phone and I made the call and I made the deal. And I even did that for Davis, and I even worked for the mayor. All right? So my point is, Oakland used to have people like me that got things done that way on a national scale. Again, I'm the only person to put Oakland in a position where it came that close, 8 NFL owner votes, to getting a Super Bowl. Even with all the bull crap that I went through, the constant no's on a daily basis, people who worked for the city, took the city's money and told me it wasn't going to get done, all right? It's that kind of drive you need to get a project done. And I'm sorry to say it, but Vegas has those people, the NFL has those people, and Oakland does not. And when Oakland is faced with having those people, it does everything it can to chase them away. Look at Robert Bob. I mean, there's a number of people, he's just one person, that I can point to who were stars in Oakland that were chased away. It's a major crisis point in terms of what's wrong with Oakland and why we don't use government to alter the market. So the problem was a matter of just fear of success in deal making. And again, we've had the problem has existed again and again and again. And when talented, bright people like Fred Blackwell feel like they're hamstrung, they jump and they get better jobs, like he's the CEO of the San Francisco Foundation. So, and he's the guy that if Fred Blackwell was still in charge, we would have had a stadium for the Raiders in Oakland. Period. Period. Yeah, Ricky, you're right. You know, almost. Almost. Just go to mayofofoakland.com. I'm not done. I'm making a point. So, Zinni, if you clicked on Maximum Impact, you can see why I banned. Oh, Barry, I trust you. You don't owe me an explanation. Don't worry about it. Okay? Don't worry about it. I'll check it out later, though. Send me a DM on Twitter. I'll check it out later, okay? But I trust you. I trust all the moderators. You guys are doing a great job. So, let's see here. Ellis Conway, that has got to be a lesson learned for Oakland natives, too, though. Have to make sure elected officials that have that level of experience. Yeah, Les, I think you're absolutely right. And we don't. And I don't know that we're going to in the future, okay? Because who gets elected and who runs tends to be a reflection of the community. We have a progressive politics. And again, I'm going to say it. I am all in favor of the proposals that council members have floated. That's not what I'm talking about. It's what they don't do in terms of creating jobs and making sure there's funding for job training that concerns me. So, no, Ricky, I'm not going to make you a moderator. Let's see here. Go Cubs. It is still raining pretty hard in Denver. Yes, Alex, exactly. Alex Conway, it's got to be okay, yeah. So anyway, it is Ellis says, that's it, I'm moving back. Come on back, Ellis. I still got my apartment, man. Rents are high, though, man, I'm telling you. Woo! They are high, high, high. So, hey, folks, it is 5:53. Now, later tonight, tentatively, I'm having on as my guest Tracy Birdsall, Hollywood actress, stars in Rogue Warrior and Robot Fighter. So it's a new movie she has coming out. She is a star at Comic-Con. She's one of those Comic-Coners always try to get on here as an actress. So I'm really excited. We're trying to work out the details. So now, what do I think happened to the Inglewood Stadium? Hey, that reminds me. I don't know exactly what you mean, Rick Rice. They're in the process of building that. The groundbreaking was last earlier this year. Last year. But the bottom line is what I was going to say is, it got pushed back to 2020. I didn't. Hey, you're educating me there or something. I'll check that out. Hey, FAA, by the way. Don't forget, there's the FAA issue with Vegas. There's also the parking issue with Vegas. So there's still a lot of issues to be gone through, and there's a land issue. So, the rain set it back? Interesting. Rick Rice, they said due to raining. Interesting. We're talking about 7 o'clock Pacific, and 7 o'clock Pacific, which would be 10 o'clock Eastern. If not tonight, then tomorrow. We're going to firm that up, and I'll put out a special bulletin via live stream just so you can know. It'll be like maybe a short live stream announcement to firm that up. Jojo says, any reason, in your opinion, why we haven't seen or heard from Davis? Well, we've got the league meeting coming up, so he should be there. But I would think just basically he wants to he probably just wants to minimize media coverage about something from a perspective that he would share. That's my first best guess. Yes, my first best guess. So, I'll check on the Inglewood situation, though. I will check on that today. And if I have any updates, it'll be later tonight, okay? Folks, it is 5:55. I want to thank everybody for participating. The moderators have been fantastic. Boycott Raiders gave us 2017. You know what I want? I want to see, gives me an idea of just a model of what the Coliseum could look like with a Raiders stadium. I don't mean that overhead, distant, no detailed example that was shown at the Raider fan forum. No, I'm talking about something stadium specific and detailed. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you all. Thank you, Ellis. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you, everybody. Hey, thank you, everybody. Where's John Marks? Did John Marks show up today? Did I miss John Marks? Ricky Bobby says, let the Dane do his job. Best owner ever. Well, actually, he's the president. But unless he owns part of the team now, maybe he does. First woman to be play-by-play for regular season games. Who are you talking about there? Go Cubs. First woman to be play-by-play commentator for NFL regular season games. No, not Tracy Bird. What? No, who are you talking about there? J.R. Powell is what? So I have no idea. Oh, hey, no comments about that. That's nah. I don't like that one. Forget it. That's not cool. No comments, JR, about Mark Davis like that. No. So, sorry. Not here. There is a first woman. Oh, LeVar Ball? I'm trying to get LeVar Ball on my channel. I sent an email yesterday actually. So, fingers crossed. I'm trying to get LeVar Ball on Zinni 62 Live. Who's with me? I've already put out the email. I'm going to try again. All right? That's right. LeVar Ball. I want LeVar Ball here for a real conversation. All right? Joe says, oh, God, no. Go Cousins with you. Ellis is like, thumbs up. Joseph, what do you have against LeVar Ball? That's hilarious. Oh God, no. Steve Collins is like yellow thumbs down. Oh man, exactly. Ellis Conway, marketing genius. LeVar Ball is a marketing genius. I want to get that does it. That does it. That does it. Ricky Bobby says Davis is the best owner ever. Mark is actually you gotta give it to Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is in the Hall of Fame. Okay. I didn't like what he did with Tom Landry, but well, you know. Loudmouth because his son he has 3 sons, not 1, 3. Melvin says no, please. get your $500 ready for shoes, Vinny. Ellis says, mark my words, he's gonna make a lot of coin. Well, dollars. Ricky Bobby says that would be woo, yep. Rick Rice says LeVar Ball is Ricky Bobby. Oh, that's hilarious. Go Cubs says, I agree with you on Jerry Jones. Yes. Oh, man. Rick, laugh out loud. All right, folks, it's 5:59. I'll see you all later. Thank you all for tuning in once again. Okay, see you later. Thank you. Thank you.